Anthony F. Elmore, president and founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. We at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association are not only the Black Buddhist force in America, but we are the Black Buddhist force in the world. And today we bring you one of our most exciting and most important Buddhist lectures. My lecture today is called Buddhism for Black Americans by Anthony F. Elmore Sr. In regards to Buddhism in America, I am undoubtedly the blackest Buddhist in America in that I have lectured and written more about Black Buddhist history than anyone in America. The first thing that some white people and a few black people will say is that Buddhism is for everybody and there should not be a Buddhism for Black America. The greatest tragedy that could have happened in Black America, USA, had many Black Americans adopted Buddhism as it is practiced in America today. Let me explain to you about the tragedy of Buddhism in America. There does not exist one Black male in America who is known and respected in the Black community as a Buddhist. You see, while Tina Turner no longer lives in America, she is the most noted Black Buddhist in the world. The Buddhist faith in America is yet to produce a Black Buddhist culture icon or a Black Buddhist cultural integration in America. There exists a culture of white supremacy, racism, Black-on-Black racism, and Asian racism, whereas Buddhism as it is practiced in America would never produce a Black Buddhist cultural integration in America. What is unknown and untold about Buddhism as it is practiced in America, Buddhism is historically rooted in racism, white supremacy, and Asian racism, whereas Buddhism's historical Black roots has been extricated from Buddhist history and practice in America and around the world. Unknown and untold about Buddhism is that Buddhist history is Black history and that our ancient ancestors practiced Buddhism. What is unknown and untold about Buddhism is that the concepts of God, Jesus, and how Buddhism is associated to Christianity has been extricated and untold via our Asian Buddhist teachers and white supremacy. The only perception that we Black people have about Buddhism is that Buddhism is about some Asian on a mountain meditating. If you research Blacks practicing Buddhism in America, you will find that Buddhism is led by Black Buddhist females who I find that do not have a clue about Black Buddhist history or who do not teach Black Buddhist history in relationship to Black history and Black Buddhist history and Christianity. When we Black Buddhists in America tell other Blacks that we are Buddhists, the first reaction you will get is that Buddhists do not believe in Jesus and God. In regards to Buddhism for Blacks in America teachings, we Buddhism for Black America have a historic Black relationship with both God and Jesus. In fact, we practice Buddhism from Black America, can go right to the Bible and find not only Buddhist teachings. In this lecture, we will prove that historically Christian teachings derive from Buddhist teachings. In the Anarchists, Godfrey Higgins writes about the Black Buddhist religion. And this is what he said, quote, "The time has now arrived when it becomes proper to enter upon the examination of the doctrines of the celebrated Buddha of India, which were the foundations of all the mysticisms of the Western nations, as well as those which have seen of Krishna, and from these two were supplied the superstitions which became engrafted into the religion of Jesus Christ. Unquote. See, this British historian writes that the foundations of all the mysticisms of Western nations come from the Black Buddha in India. See, what we know as the religion of Jesus Christ all comes from the religion of the Buddha. This idea that all the teachings of Christian religions come from the teachings of the Black Buddha of India is verified via archaeology, anthropology, literary science, and genetic science. Today, we want you to stop the video, go get your notes, and confirm many of the things we say. Now, let us bring this concept into a 21st century paradigm. The most difficult reality about these Black Buddhist facts of history and science is that those who oppose the inclusion of the facts of Black science and history, the fact that you to think about the words archaeological, anthropological, literary science connects Buddha and Christ. Recently, scientists made an important archaeological discovery that puts the Buddha back as far as 650 BC, or before anyone had ever heard of a Jesus Christ. Certainly, the original Jesus Christ was a black man. However, archaeological evidence shows Jesus as a white man in the 2nd century AD. We're going to get to that. Now, let us discuss the one fact that white people, Asians, and religious experts try to keep away from the light of day. The one thing that everyone hides and keeps hidden is the Buddha, or Buddha's relationship in Africa. This is the point: if you keep the Buddha out of Africa, then you can hide the Buddha's relationship or the Black Buddhist connection to Christian history. See, let me speak from a matter of fact. White people, Black religious leaders, Asian Buddhist teachers all keep Buddha out of Africa, and none of them would teach or share the history and culture of Buddhism in Africa. This is the point: when you can connect Buddha in Africa is when you can connect Black Buddhist history with Christian history. Now, in regards to the Abrahamic religions, that is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they do not deal with archaeology, anthropology, genetic science, literary science, nor linguistic science. Let us approach religion from the standpoint of history. Now, let us talk about the father of history, whose name was Herodotus. Now, why is Herodotus the father of history? You see, Herodotus is known as the father of history because he was the first historian to collect and systematically document events and create an account. He compiled these accounts into his single major work known as, quote, the Histories. Now, Herodotus lived about 484 BC to 425 BC. This means that Herodotus lived over 200 years after the death of the Buddha. Imagine the age of the United States of America, and then something coming up over 200 years after the age of America. Things, a lot can change. Now, this white historian wrote down the Black Buddhist history. Let us delve into Black Buddhist history and its relationship to Africa. Now let me explain why white people do not tell black people about Black Buddhist history in Africa. It is only in the Black Buddhist history that connects black people to the two Ethiopians. Now, let us be clear. White races, Asian races, and black Christian historians are not going to connect or reveal black people to the two Ethiopians. Buddhist history is black history. When you learn your Black Buddhist history, you will learn the Black Buddhist connection to Christian history. Now, let's kind of get into a little history, and I want you to Google some words. Now, the first word I want you to Google, I want you to Google a river. Now, this river is called the Sarawaki River. Now, this river dried up about 4,000 years ago. From this river emerged a black people and a culture twice as large as Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. These black people along the Sarawaki River built a city so complex that the world had to wait 2,000 more years to the rise of the Roman civilization for sanitation and town planning to reach a comparable level. You see, what white people often teach is that black people grew up uneducated, uncivilized, and they didn't become civilized until white people came on the scene. But when you study the Sarawaki River culture, you will learn that Africans or black people had a civilization with running bathroom, running water, toilets, a sewer system, dynamic urban planning 2,000 years before white people even had such things. This civilization of the Sarawaki River is also known as the Harappan culture. Now, these are two names for the civilization. It's called the Indus Valley and is commonly known as the Harappan civilization. This is what white races try hard to prove. White races attempt to use history to support white superiority and the inferiority of black people. When you have evidence of blacks who were scientific, cultural, and far advanced in science thousands of years before whites, there is silence. Now, why is the Sarawaki River and the Harappan culture important? This is important because we find that this black, advanced, sophisticated nation in India, whereas these same black people would later come to create another civilization called the Magadha Empire. This empire was built from the people and the culture of the Harappan Empire. Now, we know the name of the founder of the Magadha Empire. His name was Sisu Naga. From Sisu Naga, we come to know a black Naga king who was a contemporary of the Buddha. His name was Bevel. We can empirically and absolute logically prove that there were no people known as white people in India at this point of history. Now, let us move over 200 years after the death of the Buddha, and we come into written evidence of the white historian Herodotus. Herodotus wrote about both India and Africa. Now the Greeks called black people Ethiopians or burnt skin. Now, Plato, Alexander the Great, Diogenes, Laterus, Strabo, Philos, Judaeus, Titus, Flavius, Clemens, and all white historians confirm about the Buddhists and Buddhism coming to Greece, Rome, Ethiopia, Axum, Egypt, Persia, Babylonian, Arabia, Jerusalem, and almost all of the world. You see, there are two literary statements we want to quote from Herodotus. And quote, upon his return to Greece, they gathered around and asked, tell us about the great land of blacks called Ethiopia. And Herodotus said, quote, there are two great Ethiopian nations. One is Sin, India, and the other is Egypt. That's from Dorius, Greek historian, 100 BC. Herodotus writes about India, quote, all the tribes I mentioned, their skin are much the same color, much like the Ethiopians. Now this is from the history Herodotus. Now, this is what British historian Sir Godfrey Higgins writes about Herodotus and Buddhists. Herodotus speaks of Nero as the cradle of the Gymnosophists or Buddhists. Higgins writes, quote, we see here that the followers of Buddha are called Gymnosophists. It has been observed that the Nero of Ethiopia was Niru. This is confirmed by the observation of Herodotus that the priests of Nero were of a humane character and were called Gymnosophists. This humane character that he's talking about is the Christian or the brotherly love of the Buddhists. Now, when we come to Herodotus, we are over 400 years before the world ever heard of the religions called Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. We at this point, based on Herodotus, learn that there were two Ethiopias. Now, let us connect the two Ethiopias, India and Africa, with a people and a history. Before there was ever a white man to describe a black man as Ethiopian, there were black people who named themselves, and they were called Cush or Cushites. Now, the kingdom of Cush was an ancient kingdom in Nubia located at the confluence of the Blue Nile, the White Nile, and River Abara, in what is now Sudan and South Sudan. We are at 400 BC, and the Greek historian Herodotus writes that Nero was the cradle of the Gymnosophists or Buddhists. Now, how do we connect the Buddhists from India to Nubians in Africa? Exactly who were the Nubians? Now, The term Cushite is a general term that refers to Nubians, Sutra, Neotes, Egyptians, Anu, Canaanites, and Afro-Sumerian rulers of Mesopotamia. See, linguistic and archaeological evidence suggests that the Dravidian pre-scribes held to a religion that reflects Proto-Saharan beliefs and practices. Now, let's go back to the Greeks. Now, there was an Afro-Greek writer named Homer who alluded to the diversity and unity of the Cushite empires when he wrote, quote, "A race divided when the sloping rays, the rising and setting of the sun rays, before Homer's time, in the 8th century BC, there was a time when a vast dominion that stretched from West Africa to India, and it was dominated by rulers and priests who were ethnically Cushite." Now, this is what you must understand about the Buddhist religion. Early Buddhist practitioners, the Buddhists, were Cushites. They are different names for the same people in India. They are known as Dravidian. Now, the Dravidian and the Nubian are the same people. All these people were Afro-Asian and they spoke the same language. Let me give you a point in history. The Cushites ruled the world, and in Japan they were called the Anu, or the original people of Japan. They were in China, they were in Asia, they were all over the world. Now, these Japanese who teach us Nichiren Buddhism are not going to teach black people that the original people of Japan were Cushite or the Black Anu. The one thing that whites, Asians, and blacks who are trained by white people make sure that black people do not learn is about the Buddhist religion, is the fact that Buddhism from India and the Nubians or Cushites in Africa are one and the same people who spoke the same language. When Herodotus visited Nubia, or the capital of Kush, he wrote that Biro was the cradle of the Gymnosophists or the Buddhists. Now, the foundation of what later became the Christian Bible came from the Buddhists as revealed by Godfrey Higgins in his 1836 book, The Anaclypsis. Before there was ever the thought of a Christian Bible, our ancestors, the Black Buddhists, wrote the book of Genesis. What Christians have and the Bible is apocryphal writings. Now, we Black Buddhists have archaeological evidence. What is not taught about Christ is the fact there were two Christs in history. There is the African Christ, which is the original Christ, and there is the Roman Christ. Let me make this very, very clear. We proud Black Buddhists love, respect, and honor the African Christ. There is clearly a history, culture, and African background of the African Christ that has been written out of history. For those of you who would like to know the difference between the African Christ and the Roman Christ, the difference is Abraham. It is British historian Godfrey Higgins who teach us that Abraham was a Brahmin, and Abraham means a Brahmin. And the teachings of the two Christs is the teachings of the African Christ, and the white Christ was the teachings of Abraham or the Brahmin. On page 256 of the Anaclipsis, Godfrey Higgins writes, quote, "The real, true, conscientious Buddhists must have been an exact prototype of Jesus Christ, as I shall prove both in doctrine and practice," unquote. You see, the real and original Christians in world history were the Black Buddhists. For the record, before any white man ever thought of being a Christian, the real and original Christians were Black Buddhists. Now, on page 230 in the Anaclipsis, Godfrey Higgins writes, quote, for the origin of the cross, we must go to the Buddhists and the Lama of Tibet. In Tibet, this cross is called a dajuri. Now, the African cross of the Anak in ancient Egypt came from the Buddhist teachings. The cross in Roman Christianity did not become official until King Constantine of Rome endorsed the cross hundreds of years after the death of Christ. Now, while the cross is the foundation of the Christian religion, the cross in Buddhism symbolized the Buddhist concept of enlightenment. It was the African Christians or Buddhists who came up with the cross. Now, please note that the word Christ in Buddha means the same thing. The word Jesus represents an individualized level of enlightenment in Christian experience. See, Christ, on the other hand, represents an epitaph in the explanation of the quality of enlightenment reached by Jesus. For this reason, in the context of Western mysteries, Jesus represents the perfect mode, the inner workings of the purified substance in the vehicle in which the path of awakening, the level of Christ consciousness takes place. Now, the word consciousness, now in Syriac, Messiah, and in Greek, Christos means the anointed one. As for the word Nazarene, the meaning is, quote, he who reveals what is hidden. Now, as far as the word Messiah, it has two meanings: the Christ or the anointed one and the measured one, unquote. Now, please note that Jesus in Hebrew means redemption, and the word Nazareth means the truth. Thus, the Nazarene means the truth. Jesus had attained Nazaretha, perfect spiritual enlightenment, and that he also taught this path to others. Hence, Jesus and his disciples were Nazarenes, or Nazarenes, meaning followers of the mystic path to God, or the pure being. The original apostles used the term Jesus the Nazarene Messiah, which means Jesus the Nazarene, the Christ, the anointed one. Atone and enlightenment is one and the same word. Remember, now his last name is Christ. The first name is Jesus. The middle name is Nazarene. Now, hence the name Jesus Christ of Nazareth means the anointed one, the giver of truth, the bringer and the source of redemption, the revealer of what is hidden, the enlightened one, who has the gift to awaken one, the teachers of Christ and Buddha, was originally based on the teachings of enlightenment. Now, let us move back to that famous river that dried up. It's called a Sarawaki. Now, let's talk about the Harappan, the Indus Valley civilization. Now, this is the major sin of white historians. 2,000 years before any white people had indoor toilets, urban planning, and sophisticated cities, black people called Cushites ruled the world. What white people do is disregard archaeological and evidence, and what you see in the movies about black people is that they project black people as natives, like in the Tarzan, and the understanding that we have of black people is people without an education, a civilization, and written history. Now, in regards to black people, if you want to understand the Black Buddhist connection to Christian history, then you must get an understanding of the Brahman teachings in India. See, originally, Brahmins were black people in India who opposed or who had distorted views of Buddhist teachings. The Brahmins hated Buddhists so much that when they got into power in India, they destroyed Buddhism and they brought in foreigners in India to destroy the Buddhists. The foreigners that they brought into India to destroy the Buddhists were white people. These white people mixed with the black Indians, and they took over the religious teachings of India, and they became the new religious teachers in India, whose goal was to destroy the Buddhist teachings. I want you to look at these Indian Semites. They are the people in history who we know as Semite people. These Semite people are these people in India who became the Brahmins. These Brahmins created in India the world's first sanctified racism based on skin color called the caste system in India. Now, look at the pictures of the Brahmins in India. These Brahmins would later create a religious paradigm that would not only infect India, the Brahmins rewrote world history and created what we have in today, the false Brahman teachings. In regards to Brahman history, black people in America would kill another black rather than challenge Brahman teachings in America. In fact, Anthony M. Elmore, would be hated by blacks, whites, and Asians when I tell about Brahman history. It is the Brahmins who have a hold on world affairs. Most people have no idea that they study and practice Brahman teachings because most black people made a Brahman their father. See, we learn about the Brahman father from the British historian Godfrey Higgins, who names and explains the word a Brahman, who later became known in history as Abraham, who later became the father of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Now, in order to get a clear understanding about the Brahman teachings promote a history without science and facts. See, Brahman's teachings are the epitome of our apocryphal teachings. Please understand that the goal of Brahman teachings was to destroy and rewrite Black Buddhist history, and they did a good job. See, the Brahmins are the masters of rewriting history and changing historical dates. There are two names in history the Brahmins rewrote, and change the story. Now, in ancient literature, the word Hindu is nowhere to be found. There is no such thing in white ancient writings as Hindu. The other word you must understand is Judaism. See, the Brahmins created non-Buddhist religions of Hinduism and Judaism. This is what most people do not understand. White Hinduism and Judaism is the same religion. They use Hinduism and Judaism to destroy the Black Buddhist religion. This is what you must understand. Now, the way the Brahmins rewrote history and wrote black people out of history was through false writings called the Vedas. Now, in the Anaclipsis, Volume 1, 396 reads, quote, "The Arabian historians contend that Brahma and Abraham, their ancestor, are the same person. The Persians generally call Abraham Zarathustra. Cyrus considered the religion of the Jews the same of his own. The Hindus must have come from Abraham or the Israelites from Rome." Now, the word Abraham is derived from the Sanskrit word Brahma. The root of Brahma is Ra, which means to grow or multiply in number. In addition, Lord Brahma, the creator God of Hinduism, is said to be the father of all men and exalted of all gods, for it is from him that all beings were generated. Thus again, we come to the meaning exalted father. This is a clear pointer that Abraham is none other than the heavenly father Brahma. The Temple of Mecca was founded by a colony of Brahmins from India. It was a sacred place before the time of Muhammad, and they were permitted to take pilgrimage to it from several centuries after his time. Its great celebrity as a sacred place long before the time of the prophet cannot be doubted. In fact, the teachings of Abraham come from Brahma. There is no archaeological, anthropological, genetic science, literary science, or linguistic science to even prove the existence of Abraham. The story of Abraham comes from the story of the Hindu Vedas. So when you see Abraham and you see Noah and you see Moses, all of these teachings come from the Hindu Vedas, and they are false teachings without any science. Let us look at the Black Buddhist and ancient history in Africa. Please Google the word haikus. Now, please, we explained that the Cushites ruled the world. In ancient India, they were known as Proto-Dravidians. Now, the haikus were black people from India who conquered Egypt. Although they were from Asia, they were Cushites. They were known also as the Shepherd Kings. What you have is different names for the same people known as Cushites. See, for thousands of years, the Cushites in Africa interacted with their Asian brothers. Let us go back to the time of the son of a Cushite king, Shakyamuni or Siddhartha Buddha. The Buddhists were shepherd kings. Now, this is what British historian Garth Higgins writes on the matter. Quote, "I suppose the shepherd kings who conquered Egypt were the Rajputs or Buddhists of the country of Raja Bedouins or Rajasthan. The Israelites, as well as the royal shepherds, were both, in fact, Arab tribes also from Arabia on the Indus. From Raja and Punt or Buddha came to name the country of the Rajapants, or royal Buddhists. From Punt was the name Buddha. The inhabitants of that country were Pali or shepherds. From Punt was the name Buddha. Now, they came from a country called Arabia as they crossed the Western Arabia en route to the Abyssinia, Ethiopia. When forced forwards by succeeding tribes, they left behind them to the peninsula the name of Arabia, which it still possesses. Unquote. Now, do not take my word for it. If you look at Ethiopians in Africa today, you will see that they look just like the Southern Indians. All you have to do is look at the Ethiopians of the high coast and know that these people were Buddhists. They were called Naga, and you see the Egyptians with the snake. Please note, the cobra is indigenous of India, but you see the cobra in Africa. Shakyamuni Buddha was called the Lion of the Shakas. And when you look at the Buddhist temples in Asia, you see the lion. The lion comes from Africa, not Asia. Look at Roman history of the Bible. We find absolutely no archaeological, anthropological, literary science, genetic science of the Bible history, but we find archaeological, anthropological, literary science, genetic science of the Black Buddhist connection to Christian history. This is what British historian Godfrey Higgins writes about Nubia or the Nubians. He says, Mr. Franklin says, quote, another striking instance is recorded by the very intelligent traveler Wilson regarding a representation of the fall of our first parents, sculptured in the magnificent temple of Istanbul in Nubia. He says that a very exact representation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is to be seen in that cave, and that the serpent climbing the tree is especially delineated, and the whole subject of tempting of our first parents most accurately exhibited. How is the fact of the mystos of the second book of Genesis being found in Nubia, probably 1,000 miles above Holophus, to the ancients to be accounted for, except that it came from Upper Egypt with the first Buddhists or Gymnosophist, unquote. You see, there is a total different interpretation of the Buddhist interpretation of the book of Genesis, and that the way it is interpreted in Buddhism. Now, we have archaeological, anthropological, literary science, genetic science, that not only that Buddhists came from India to Africa, we connect Black Buddhists to Christian history. Before there was ever any white person who called themselves Christians, Black Buddhists were not only Christian, white people were worshiping the black god and his mother. Let us look at what British historian Sir Godfrey Higgins writes about this matter. Quote, in book 152, the same work De Abstinia Porphyry informs us that in very old times, the sacrificing of, indeed, the use of flesh of animals was not practiced either by the Athenians or the Syrians. The Syrians, that is, the natives of the ancient city of Ona, and the Palestinians, the Ionians, of whom I shall speak presently, advancing still eastwards, we find Porphyry giving an account of the Magi from Ebullus, who wrote that their history, in which he states that the first and the most learned class of the Magi neither eat nor slay anything animated, but adhere to the ancient abstinence from animals. After this, he goes to the gymnosophists called Samidians and the Brahmins of India, whom he gives an account, and from which it appears that they have varied very little from what they were in his time. But all these actions seem to show signs of the first Black Buddhist people as either no animal food or the Black Hilaski or Illyrians coming to Italy and bringing the Black God and his mother along with them. They not only brought the Black God and his mother, but they brought his house of Loreto, as I shall show in its proper place, unquote. Now, this is what I like to know. If there is any honest people who I can speak with, the first Black Buddhists were not only vegetarians. They brought the Black God and his mother to Italy hundreds of years before there was ever a religion that was officially called Christian. White people and people over the world practice the religion of the Black God and his mother. You see pictures all over the world of the Black God and his mother. It was only in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea that King Constantine made the religion official. Now what he did was he added the God of England, of Britain, called Jesus to the name, and then they added the name from the Krishnas. See, the Krishnas was another set of Buddhists, and they officially called the religion of the new God Jesus Krishna. However, the religion of the Black God and his mother was all over Europe. At this time, we had the Kushan Empire, but the Kushan, or the Kush Empire rather, had changed its name to Abyssinia because it changed to become Christian. Now, what I want you to understand, that in the Bible, how we know about the Buddhists is the word Samaritan. See, in the Bible, that was the Good Samaritans. In the story of Christ, British historian Godfrey Higgins spells Samidian, or he writes the Samaritans were the gymnosophists of Buddhists. Now, the word Samaritan means Buddha or Buddhist people. The Buddhists or passive people brought their religion of Christ or Buddha into Italy. When you see the Catholic Church, the Black Madonna you are looking at is the Buddha and his mother Maya. Higgins also writes, quote, "We see here that the followers of Buddha are called gymnosophists. It is observed that Nero of Ethiopia was Meru. This is confirmed by an observation of Herodotus that priests of Nero were of a humane character and were called gymnosophers. This is what white people do not tell black people. For hundreds of years, white people in Europe practiced the religion of the Buddha all over Europe. White people practice Buddhism, and you will see whites honoring the black baby child, Buddha, and his mother. I beg my viewers to stop and think for a moment. How is it that we find all over Europe the image of a black god and his mother? Just Google the Black Madonna and try to find out why we have the Black Madonna. When you research such things, like the Da Vinci Code idea is conjured that it is somehow connected to forbidden secrets of Mary Magdalene. See, ladies and gentlemen, there is a secret regarding the Christian religion, and the secret is, quote, the Black Buddhist connection to Christian history. These secrets have been unraveled hundreds of years ago by British historian Sir Godfrey Higgins. Again, I repeat what he writes, quote, but all these accounts seem to show signs of the first Black Buddhist people as eating no animal food, or the Black Pagasi or Armenians as coming to Italy and bringing the black god and his mother along with them. And they not only brought the black god and his mother, they brought his house of Loreto. What you will find is that these stories were engrafted from the Buddhist religion. You do not have to take my word for it. The Christian story, Sermon on the Mount, and the Buddhist story, Temptation of Mara, is the same story. Mara is called the devil. The story of the prodigal son comes right out of the Lotus Sutra. This and Christianity are the same stories. Now, the way to bring everything to perspective to understand how white people wrote black people out of the story, when you bring black people to the story, you can connect the dots. See, Buddhists, Christians, and black people in early religious history are one and the same people. The way whites changed the story was to extricate black people out of both Christian and Buddhist history. Please note, Buddhism and early Christianity is one and the same religion. Let's see how we can make the story clear. In ancient world history, whites wrote out the fact that most of the world practiced the Buddhist religion. It was not called Buddhism, nor was it called Christianity. Let me put this in a way to show you, in a way that you understand that in the Christian Bible, there's the story of the priest, the Levite, and the Good Samaritan. In ancient times, the Buddhists or gymnosophers were called Samaritans. There are two spellings of the word. The other is Sanmedia, that's Samanean. If you Google the word, you will find also the word gymnosophist, which means Buddhist. See, gym means naked, sophist means philosophers. Buddhism is simply what the religion was called just a few hundred years ago. It would be very, very hard for anyone to believe Anthony Elmore. However, the concrete proof, the smoking gun, is that the original Christ of black Buddhists from India are those black Madonnas all over Europe. There is no way anyone can explain how white people all over Europe came to recognize and worship the black god and his mother. Please understand what Roman King Constantine in 325 AD at the Council of Nicaea made official in Rome was the Christian religion. Again, he used the two names, Jesus and Krishna, that later became known as Jesus Christ. If you Google December the 25th, it is the birthday of the Buddha, it is the birthday of Krishna. All of this ties in. Now, it is very difficult and almost impossible to understand the parallel course of the two religions happening in our world at the same time. You see, there was the Brahmins and the Buddhists. There were two competing religions. Originally, the Brahmins were black people in India, but they killed the Buddhists and they brought in whites to subdue black Buddhists. The children of the whites who mixed with the blacks ruled northern India, and they set up not only the world's first sanctified religion called the caste system. These light-skinned rulers known as Brahmins came up with a new religion. It was called Hindu. They and their religion rewrote history and created myths that later became known in the world as history and facts. See, the clearest way to delineate the original Christians with black Buddhists is to separate the teachings of the Hindu Brahmins. Please understand that in ancient writings, the word Hindu, as in the Hindu religions, did not exist. The Hindu Brahmins rewrote history, they introduced myths, changed the dates, and they called it world history. There exists no archaeological evidence of Abraham, nor Moses or the Exodus. All of these stories come from the Hindu Brahmins, who rewrote history, changed dates, and appropriated black Buddhist history. The two most noted written books by the Brahmins were the Vedas and the Torah. Both books are reeked with fraud, and they came from the same source, the Brahmins. Now, what you must understand is that there exists no archaeological evidence of the Torah of the Brahmins before AD. Now, we at the Proud Black Buddhist World Association can explain why there is a black baby, or black God baby with his mother, because the black God baby and his mother were originally black Buddhists. Let me take you to some of the earliest archaeological evidence of a white Christ. The first archaeological evidence of Jesus happened in the 2nd century with the Kushan king Kanishka. Now, please understand that King Kanishka was a Kushan king who had ruled Afghanistan. Now, he conquered India. Now, for hundreds of years, the Greeks had introduced or had adopted the Buddhist religion. Now, when he conquered India, he changed the Buddha from black to white, and he created the beginnings of the Christian religion, and that in the 2nd century AD, he created what is called the Gandhara images. And when you look at these images, for example, you see one of the mother of the baby being bathed, or you see the 12 disciples. You see Buddha had 12 disciples, Jesus had 12 disciples. What they did was they took those pictures of the Greek-like images of Buddhists, and that is your foundation of the Christian religion. In fact, the first evidence of the Christian religion is on a Kanishka coin. On one side of the coin, you have Buddha, and the other side of the coin, we have Jesus. Now, you see, although we can show Black Buddhist association with white people before the time of Alexander, please view the images of Alexander the Great with Buddhists. See, the ancient Greeks before Alexander was associated with Black Buddhists. There was a black man who was Socrates. He was a Gnostic or a Buddhist. Socrates taught Plato, Plato taught Aristotle. Aristotle taught Alexander the Great. Before there was ever an idea of a Jesus Christ, Greeks practiced Buddhism. What I want you to do, this is evidence of this, just Google the word Greco-Bactrian kingdom along with the Indo-Greek kingdoms, the easternmost part of the Hellenistic world, covering Bactria and Sardinia in Central Asia from 250 to 125 BC. Now, it was centered on the north of present-day Afghanistan. The expansion of the Greco-Bactrians into present-day eastern Afghanistan and Pakistan from 180 BC established the Indo-Greek kingdom, which was to last until around 10 AD. Now, you got to understand, you see, let's go back into India. Around 185 BC, the Brahmin general by the name of Pushyamitra Sangha killed the last Mauryan king, and they kicked the Buddhists out of India. Now, we can go to 155 to 130 BCE to the Greek king Meander. Now, he's also known as King Melinda. This was a great white Buddhist king. They got the stories of the answers of King Melinda and Buddhist history. You see, the Roman Empire was built from the Black Empire of the Etruscans, who were Buddhists. This is what white people do not tell black people. It was the Black Buddhists who was called by the Christians who Nero fed to the lion and Rome. Let me be clear. The world's first missionary religion was Buddhism. It was the Black Buddhist king Asoka who peacefully spread the Buddhist religion around the world. That is evidence of what King Asoka did. It got into Africa and it got all over to certain European countries. Now, let's get to this. Abraham represented the Hindu Roman Jews. Now, what you must understand is that Judaism was not a monolithic religion. The Jewish religion, everybody was not the same. For example, the Jews, there was a tribe of Jews who came to Africa from India hundreds of years before the other Jews. This tribe of Jews were called the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Judah is the same tribe as the Buddha. In fact, the Buddha, Shakyamuni, was called the Lion of the Shakas. Whenever you see the tribe of Judah, you are going to see the lion because the lion represented the Buddhists. When you see the Asoka Edic, which we're going to show you, the Asoka Edic, you see the lions on a throne because they represented the tribe of Judah. You can see this at the Apodembac Temple in Africa. You see the Naga, which the Buddhists were Nagas, or the cobra snake coming out of the lotus flower, and you see that beautiful throne. This is in Africa. Now, what happened was that the people all over Europe later came to accept the Buddhist religion. Now, it is only the proud Black Buddhists who teach the true history that the original Christ were Black and Buddhist. When you challenge, you go to the 2nd century AD where the Kushan king changed the Buddha from black to white. This is when all of this happened. Now, all one has to do is look at the Ganhara carvings of the Buddhists and you will see the first foundation of the Christian religion, whereas Christians were moved from black to white. Now, what I want all the experts to explain to me is why we find the Black Buddhist God and his mother all over Europe. King Constantine sanctioned the Christian religion at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. The name again was Jesus Krishna, or Jesus Christ became officially the name of the religion, but before it was the Christian religion, this religion was all over Europe. Now, the story of Jesus and Buddha is the same story and the same God. The story of the birth, death, and resurrection come from the new religion that King Kanishka and Ashwagosha created called Mahayana Buddhism. All the story, the birth, the death, and the resurrection of Christ comes from Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism was started by King Kanishka. Now, let us deal with Buddhism in Asia hundreds of years before Buddhism arrived in Asia, meaning China and Japan and Tibet. See, Buddhism became Christianity before these religions even got to Asia. Now, let me tell you how Christianity happened. You see, Christianity started with a group of Buddhists. They were not called Buddhists, but they were called Essenes. Now, the Essenes were a sect of Second Temple Judaism that flourished in the 2nd century BC to the 1st century. The Essenes lived in various cities but congregated in a communal life dedicated to asceticism. Some groups practiced celibacy, they volunteered poverty and daily immersions. The Essenes again were the Buddhists. Now, we move to the Hebrew king, Alexander Jannaeus. He was the king of the Hebrew king of Judea from 103 to 76 BCE. He was an Essene or a Buddhist. How we know? Because he left a Buddhist koan. Now, the Buddhist koan shows the Dharma wheel. This shows that he was a Buddhist. Now, what happened was he got into a fight with the Brahmins. Now, the Brahmins were called the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Now, he got into a big fight. There was a big major war, and Alexander Jannaeus disappeared, the Essenes disappeared, and we never heard any more from them until about 1940 or 46. And they found some scrolls in a cave near the Dead Sea. These were the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, in regards to black people worldwide, white people literally wrote black people out of history. Most white people are not going to tell black people that the original Christian God was black and Buddhist. Just ask white people and any scholarly Negro why you find the black God and his mother in European nations revered to this day. Now, let's bring this lecture to a close. Now, we told you that was the great Kush Empire of Morocco. Now, what happened was there was another group of black people who conquered the Kush Empire. Now, see, the Black Nubian Empire lasted until it was captured and burned to the ground in the 4th century AD by Ezana of Axum. That's from 320 to 360 the Christian era. It's located in present-day Eritrea. northern Ethiopia, Yemen and Saudi Arabia, northern Somalia, Djibouti, northern Sudan, and southern Egypt. King Ezana, he was trained by some shipwrecked Christians from Syria, and he grew up in Ethiopia, but what he did was he changed the religion from Buddhism to the Christian religion. This is how it happened in Ethiopia. What we know today as Christianity is simply Greek-style Buddhism. The original Christians were Black Buddhists, and the original Christians was Buddhists. That is us, the proud Black Buddhists. The essence of Buddhism is the Dharma. When you understand the Dharma, you will get an understanding of Buddhism. Now, I'll attempt in this part of the lecture to explain how Islam adopted Buddhism. Please understand that there is a perpetual battle of Brahmanism and Buddhism in our world. There is Brahman Islam and there is Buddhist Islam. There's a Brahman Christianity and there's a Buddhist Christianity. Let me explain Islamic Buddhism. Now, the one person most noted for the start of Islamic Buddhism is Caliph al-Ma'mun. Now, he was the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, the Dharma is the essence of Buddhism. The Dharma includes the teachings of the Buddha, but the Dharma is not limited to the teaching of the Buddha. The Dharma, explained in a simple way, is understanding natural laws in our universe. When Caliph al-Ma'mun got into power, he did not believe in the practice of Brahman Islam. In America, we only know of Baghdad as an evil place most noted for Saddam Hussein and Arab terrorists. Now, humanity owes a lot to al-Ma'mun and actually Islam or Arabs in that they created what we call a Dharma in Baghdad. Baghdad was actually the center of learning. Like, while most people just think of Baghdad as a bad place, al-Ma'mun encouraged all of the ancient writings to be translated into Arabic. Now, translators from abroad, certainly the Greek teachings were into Arabic. We know that Buddhism was widely practiced in Iran, and we know that the Lotus Sutra was translated into Arabic. Now, under the economic support of al-Ma'mun, he had a place called the House of Wisdom, and scholarship in general was encouraged. I mean, scientists from all over the world came into Baghdad. That's where we got the Arabic numerals. We got algebra, geometry, all the sciences, all of these things, all the medicines and many of the things we have today happened during the golden age of Islam. And it happened because Islam or al-Ma'mun started a culture that lasted 300 or 400 years in Baghdad, where all of the sciences and the enjoyments of science that we know today came from Arab people. Now, I also want you to understand and learn one thing. There is a man, his name was Al-Ghazali. Al-Ghazali. Now, he is known by historians as the single most influential Muslim after the Islamic prophet Muhammad. Within Islam, he is considered a Mujaddid or renewer of faith. Now, according to tradition, it says these guys appear to restore faith. And he worked highly and acclaimed by contemporaries that Al-Ghazali was awarded the honorific title Proof of Islam. Now, he is cited mostly for bringing Islam back, because what he did was he got rid of all of the Hellenistic philosophy or all the teachings that people learned in Greece, and what he did was turn Islam into a closed society. Or what he did was he took the teachings of Abraham, which was the teachings of a Brahmin, and he brought those teachings back into mainstream society, and he closed Arabic people or the Islamic faith to relate to science and culture. And Islam is what is known today. So the person that's most noted for that is called Al-Ghazali. He was the man who actually destroyed the Dharma in Arabic country of Baghdad. We concluded this lecture pointing out Buddhist Islam. Buddha means wisdom, and in Baghdad they had the house of wisdom, whereas they practiced Buddhist Islam. Please note that the Buddha Dharma is the Eightfold Path. We practice the Dharma. The Dharma is the right view, the right intention, the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, the right effort, the right concentration, and the right mindfulness. What you have here is us, who are proud Black Buddhists, who teach a Buddhism based on science. We are more like Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, and that we stand proud and we teach the Lotus Sutra, the highest of the Buddhist teachings. The title of the Lotus Sutra is Myoho Renge Kyo. Yo means correct, Ho means law. Renge is the symbol of the lotus flower, which means the law of cause and effect, and the word Kyo means teaching. So the Buddhist teachings are all the teachings of the universe, and the word Namo means to awaken. So we who teach Buddhism are awakened to the correct law of cause and effect teaching. Anyway, I am Anthony Elmore, President and founder of Proud Black Buddhist World Association, bringing you another Black Buddhist lecture.